Fasten your seatbelts. It's time for the Anything Goes Hour with Stu Breyer.
I wonder how many people, if you ask, do you like yourself or hate yourself, they would give you an honest answer, and we may be surprised. We have in the line an author, Joffrey McClung, who is on the line, and she has a book called The Heart of the Matter. Hi, Joffrey.
Hey, Sue, how you doing?
We're doing. Am I pronouncing your first name right, Joffrey?
Yes, you did it wonderfully. It's Joffrey McClung.
Okay, got it. I got it written down, but I just want to make sure that I had it right because I didn't want to dislike myself.
Okay.
All right. This is an interesting topic, one that I've never discussed, and that is that some people, you meet them, and they don't seem to like themselves because they try to live up to everybody else. What makes people not like themselves?
Well, in truth, I think most of us have a sense of lack of self-love within us. We tend to look outside of ourselves for everything in our life, whether it's our worthiness of love or our sense of being good enough in our expressing our loving heart or a sense that we matter and are valued. We look for everything outside of ourselves, and sometimes that works, and then sometimes it doesn't. Self-love is about finding those things within yourself.
You've been talking about some people who just downright hate themselves. I mean, how do they even go on that way?
Well, I think, people get to that point because they kept looking outside themselves and they get more disgruntled and more hateful to themselves because they're getting bad images back. If they would stop looking outside of themselves and realize, I can find this within me, life would change for them. For instance, being worthy of love means you exist, therefore you are worthy of love in the universe's eyes. Not because somebody loves you in the moment or for a few years, but because you exist, you are worthy of love. I think people have a lot of old wounds, to be frank with you, from their past, that tends to make them act out and become a bully, frankly.
Does it start with speculating when kids are very, very young and maybe they have domineering parents who always criticize them for things?
Oh, that certainly is part of it. I mean, when you're young, you're setting up your belief system for your life, setting up your belief of who you are in this world and how the world is going to treat you. That comes from your parents, your teachers, your church or your temples, wherever you're going. You're getting that when you're really young. Unfortunately, we're being raised, and I was raised, by people who also lack in self-love, passing on their feelings, the lack of self-love. That's why I call it wounds, but there are things that happen in your early childhood that make you form negative beliefs about yourself and how the world's going to see you.
So some of the nicest people in the world who would say, man, they are so great, they're just loving people, can really, deep inside, it's never enough for them to do good things.
Oh, that was sort of me and many of my friends. On the outside, we looked fine. We were doing our careers and having a decent life. But once you stop and you begin to look inward and ask yourself questions about what you believe and why you believe and what you feel about yourself, you suddenly realize you're lacking in self-love. Because frankly, self-love is based on the belief that you are lovable, that you're worthy of love, that you are loving, that you're expressing your natural, benevolent heart, whether it's through business or relationships or creativity, and that you're loved, that you matter and are valued by the universe, not for what you've done or what you will do, but because you are you. When you lock those three things in, then you can build upon your self-love.
So when we know of people who do very bad things, criminals and hurt people, are these people that they do these things because they hate themselves or they're just born that way?
Well, I would say two things. One, it could be that they do not like themselves at all, and so they're suffering from their wounds. And the other thing is they could be psychopathic, meaning socially psychopathic, or have other mental issues that need to be dealt with through a psychiatrist. And those are separate issues. I do not deal with that a psychiatrist needs to deal with. But in general, if there's bullies in your life, when I did my inner homework, I had to own my shadow, and your shadow is the part of yourself that you rarely look at. That's why it's called shadow. And because I had so many bullies in my life, I had to own the fact that I, too, have a bully within my life, within myself as well. We all can be a bully, and we can all be victims. The bullies tend to act out their sense of being unlovable or not valued outwardly, and victims tend to take it on, the bullies, because they feel unlovable or powerless.
It's interesting analogy because you think of bullies, they probably do what they do because they seem so little to like themselves that they want to look better than other people who are vulnerable. Is it somewhere in that area?
Well, certainly that gives them a false sense of power. If they can make someone feel smaller than how they feel, it gives them that false sense of power. In my book, I talk about that false sense of power we get from judging other people, needing to be right, needing to be in control. And those are all things that bullies take to the 10th degree, frankly. They want to control the heck out of you. They need to be right at all ends, and they judge everybody.
So when did you see the light? You mentioned you were bullied as a young lady, had some tough parents, and maybe your self-esteem was not very high. When did you say, wait a minute?
Well, let me first say I had wonderful parents. When I said meaning that everybody's parents lack a bit of self-love, the more people I meet, I realize they all need to do some work on self-love. So let me be frank about that. My parents were quite wonderful.
Okay, all right. We'll take them off the hook.
Take him off the hook. But I did have a bully within my family that from the moment I was born did attack me physically, mentally, emotionally, and spiritually. When I woke up is I began to look around really in my early 30s when I was living back in New York. And I kept having that inner voice, you're not good enough, you're not going to get this job, they're smarter. And I kept saying, why do I have this inner voice? So I started doing a little reading and doing some hypnotherapy, anything I could to quiet that voice down. The more I did, the louder it got. And then when I started to ask about my lack of self-love, that's when the work took on a new depth.
Mm. May I ask what type of bullying you received by one of these relatives, or what was the type of bullying?
Well, it was my sister. I'm rewriting this book that The Heart of the Matter to include my personal story now.
Mm-hmm.
It was my sister who was 3 years older. I can talk about her now because she has passed on, and I have forgiven her, which is in the book. You've got to forgive those who did you wrong for your own freedom, of course. She really was very upset that I was born and took any attention away from her. And my parents kept thinking, well, they'll grow out of this. This is just sibling rivalry. But I knew in my heart of hearts there was something different. She would attack me at all ends. She would put me down, humiliate me, shame me. She would hit me. It was pretty brutal. And then when she went through puberty, it went off the scale, frankly.
My goodness, that's rough duty.
So it was kind of brutal. But I did have lovely parents.
So in your book, you cover a lot of things. Can you tell us about some things? It says 3 things you can do daily to begin to change this unhealthy habit.
Well, one thing you can do daily is start your day off taking 1 minute. And no, that doesn't sound like a lot, but I'm telling you, people try it and they realize about 15 seconds their mind starts to drift. Take 1 minute in the morning before you start your day to talk kindly to yourself in your head. You don't have to do it out loud, but that you're talented enough, you're smart enough, you're good enough, you have everything you need for the journey. Whatever you need to tell yourself, start giving yourself 1 minute. That will tell you how much work you need to do, because if you can't do 1 minute of talking kindly to yourself, you need to do some deeper work, frankly.
Mm-hmm.
And the second thing you can do is to end your day by being practicing self-gratitude. Now, we know gratitude lifts your vibration, lifts your spirit, and basically gives you more optimism towards life. Well, self-gratitude is using the same energy to offer it to yourself. Look back over your day and choose 3 things you feel grateful that you are you. Perhaps you gave some money to somebody on the street. Be grateful that you are generous. Perhaps you made somebody laugh at work. Be grateful that you have a sense of humor. In other words, you pick 3 things every day that you're grateful for being you. That will really end your day in a much better light, no matter what kind of day you frankly had.
I had a listener who might have a question for you, but let me talk about this aspect, Joffrey, and that is guilt. People that hang on to guilt and may have not done some things that aren't very nice. Of course, it's in the past, it's done. Are there other tips to getting rid of some of this guilt so people can like themselves again?
Oh, yeah, I talk about guilt in the book. I call it regrets in a sense, regretting your choices, regretting your actions. And again, you have to look at those to realize what your lack of self-love caused you to do outwardly, which is what I did when I looked at my past behavior, whether it was being needing to be right or being in control, being that bully that I did not own, that shadow bully. That gave me a sense of self-compassion, which I then used to forgive my sister, realizing why I did it, the stuff she must have had inside of her must have been heartbreaking. So again, you got to look at why you did your things, and then you got to be able to practice self-compassion.
They have an expression that if you don't love yourself, then you can't find somebody to love you or have good friends because you're not loving yourself. Is there anything to that?
Oh, I think that's totally true. You may have somebody who loves you, and you may be delighted while you're in that in-loving state. But once it settles down, you're going to start to doubt it because you doubt yourself. You're going to start to say, well, maybe they don't show me enough appreciation, enough value, enough worth, and I'm worthy of love. They ignored me today. You're going to put all your stuff onto that person. If you do not have self-love, you're going to project it outwardly onto everything you're doing. I can speak from that from my own life, frankly.
We do a lot of shows on domestic violence and horrible marital situations. And someone will call and they say, yeah, I've been through it. And then they go out and meet the same type of person. Does that mean they feel that they're justified to have this and they deserve it?
Well, they haven't done their homework, frankly. I've met people who get divorced and they marry the same kind of person in their next relationship. Yeah. And I say, well, when did you meet them? I met them 7 months after I was divorced. Well, you didn't do your homework, frankly. And we need to be more conscious. We need to be more mindful. And you need to do homework when you leave a job or a relationship and realize what you participated in, what you allowed to happen, and why you allowed somebody to hit you or to berate you. You need to do your inner homework before you go to meet somebody new. I always say, if you're leaving a relationship, you need to take some time off and look inward and do some self-loving, frankly, some self-nurturing, some self-caring. I know a lot of people who do that until they finally realize they're living the same patterns over and over again. You have patterns to wake you up, not because you deserve them. They're being done again and again to get your attention to say, I don't want to live this again. And then you got to do your inner homework.
I know some folks that when people do something nice for them, which is a wonderful thing, they still feel uncomfortable, like, oh, I better do this for them, I better do that. And I can see the feeling like I'm unworthy to get these nice people to do that. And that's an exhausting way to live, isn't it?
I think it's a horrible way to live, and I think women tend to do that slightly more than men. Women are raised to say, oh, don't say that. Oh, I know I don't look good. That sort of feeling, women are raised to not take compliments. And one of the blogs I did way back was talking about taking a compliment and saying, thank you. Thank you so much for saying that. Because that means that you're honoring yourself and you're loving yourself. So if you're not taking a compliment, you need to look inward. What is stopping you from taking a compliment? And if somebody's willing to do something for you, just thank them and be grateful you have such loving people in your life.
Yeah, it's very hard for some people to do that. Former media producer you are, it says, Geoffrey, and an independent filmmaker. Have you made a film on this subject, which is a good one?
No, I haven't. I did do 2 shorts that were about going for your dreams. And then I did do a feature, which is about going for your dreams, which was about a relationship between myself and a black actress. And it was set in the 1950s, and we started a new business together. It's always about going for your dreams. I may do one about this. I did a first book called How Learning to Say Goodbye Taught Me How to Live, which was about my best friend and I, how we kept doing our inner homework as she was battling breast cancer. I may do a script for that, because that has good potential for a film.
Geoffrey, because you've had such a lot of background in this, when you meet people, can you instantly see the signs of, there's something wrong, or can they cover it up pretty good?
Well, usually if there's somebody who's very, very out loud proud of themselves, my bell goes off. Somebody who's extremely proud of themselves and talks about themselves constantly, that's my idea that they're really lacking in self-love, because if you have self-love, you don't need to tell people. So that's a big clue to me when somebody is over braggadocious, so to speak. On the other one, somebody who can't take a compliment. Oh, don't say that. They keep trying to please people and not take anything. That's another big clue to me.
It's interesting, people who brag about themselves. We don't think about that often. We just look at them as a bragger, but there's a lot going on there, huh?
They're covering up their feelings of being that they're lacking in something, that people will find out that they're unlovable or they're not worthy of expressing their natural loving heart, or they're not valued or mattered. Anybody who's bragging, and unless they're under 20 years old. I'll give you through till you're 20, or maybe 25, since the brain keeps working, growing till you're 25. But after that, if you're still doing that, you got some issues to work on, frankly.
So the book, The Heart of the Matter, what are we going to find in it?
Well, you're going to find in it, you're going to find three parts. The first part's talking about the three tools that we're all born with that you're going to use to do this inner work, which are your imagination, which you're going to use in meditation. And meditation, frankly, is just closing your eyes and focusing your attention. But your imagination is used in all of this work, because you've got to imagine what love feels like to you, because you're going to start bringing up that feeling of love for yourself. The second thing is your emotions, and then your higher self. But your higher self is just the part of you that has never forgotten that it is one with the divine and has all the knowledge and power of that love. Because you do have that part of yourself that does know the right answer to certain things. But we don't listen to that. We listen to those negative voices that play in our heads. The second part is I talk about what self-love is, you're lovable, loving, and loved. I break it down. I have you do homework on that so you can find out the areas that you're lacking in there. And then the third part, you begin to look at your wounds that you formed your beliefs about yourself and the world around you. Again, you can just read the discussions and get something out of it. You can do the questions I have in the book and get something out of it, or you can do all of it and do the meditations and get something out of it. It really will meet you where you're at.
So you talk a lot about your personal life, how this evolved in the book.
Well, no, The Heart of the Matter did not have my personal life because my sister was still on the planet,
Okay,
and I
that's
did not
right.
want to humiliate her or shame her.
I get you.
And once she passed, I figured I was safe and I could tell my personal story. So I am rewriting the book in a sense that will have more of my story and why I did certain meditations, or why I asked myself certain questions. But again, this book is fine. It will get you started. It will certainly get you started.
So, people say don't hang around with negative people, and some people have grown up with these people all their lives. They're not really terrible people, but they're so negative that they can bring you down. Are we better off finding new friends, or is there something that we can say that may turn them around on that?
Well, I always say give it a whirl, try to turn them around. But again, it's really not your job to make people grow or to change. People can do that. Women tend to do that more than men, but there are men who do that as well. I say give it a chance, say you're bringing me down, quit being so negative, see if it makes them stop. Most likely it won't.
Yeah.
Coming from a deeper place in them, a deeper haunting place in them. I say if they're just friends, maybe you only see them occasionally, or maybe you let them go. Bless them in your heart and let them go. You have to decide what you want in your life, frankly. I don't want to be around negative people, so I don't hang out with negative people, frankly. But if you have one in your life, you got to deal with them. Just try to deal with them and be as honest as you can and say, I'm going to leave the room. I don't need to hear that right now.
See, the line, we're often kinder to others than we are to ourselves. It's okay to be kind to yourself. Some people feel guilty if they do something for themselves. Like, I want to go and get a therapeutic massage, but I can't, they go fumble, because it's all right to do something good for yourself.
Well, I think how you treat yourself is how the world's going to treat you, frankly. So if you're not giving to yourself, now I think it's more important to hear yourself and listen to what you're saying to yourself and change those inner negative beliefs and thoughts and make them more positive, more loving, more expansive. But if you're not giving to yourself, really, you're not going to get it from anybody else, because people can give it to you, but you're not going to let it into your heart.
Joffrey, it's a pleasure speaking with you. I love the subject. I assume your book, you can get it anywhere, any special places, online, of course.
Oh, yeah, you can get it on Amazon, Balboa, Barnes & Noble. It's called The Heart of the Matter, a workbook and guide to finding your way back to self-love. You can also read a free chapter on my website, which is joffreymcclung.com, or you can just type in it's allaboutselflove.com, ITS, allaboutselflove.com.
Very good. So what's your average day like these days?
Well, I'm finishing up. I finished my new manuscript, which is called It's All About Self-Love. And I'm starting to pitch it to publishers now. So I cross my fingers and cross my legs and hope I can find a publisher for it.
I hope so, Joffrey. It's a pleasure speaking with you. Thank you.
Oh, thank you so much for having me. Have a great day.
You too.